Hello, everyone. Today I will tell you about Norway, about his nature, and much more. Let's start with 10 interesting facts about Norway. Number 1. The sun doesn't set in summer. The midnight sun is a natural phenomenon that occurs during the summer months in locations in the Arctic Circle and in Norway. There is 78 days of constant sunlight from May through to July. Comparatively, the country is also plunged into darkness during polar nights, which run from November through to January. It is well worth visiting Norway during both midnight sun and polar nights, as the country takes on two completely different personas. Number 2. Norway introduced salmon sushi to Japan. You may think that sushi is a Japanese invention, as it is an iconic dish of the country. But salmon sushi was introduced by Norwegian in the 1980s. The low stocks in Japan at the time and the fresh, abundant fish that was available in Norway meant a deal was struck and salmon from Norway was used by the Japanese. Number 3. There are two versions of the Norwegian language. As with most languages, there are usually several variations that may once have been in circulation over the years, but Norway still has two languages that are in use. Bokmål is the language that is used most across the country, whereas Nynorsk is frequently used in more rural areas, particularly in the Western Fjord region. Number 4. Europe's biggest herd of wild reindeer lives in Norway. When you think of reindeer, you may initially think of the Arctic or Lapland, but the biggest and largest herd of reindeer in Europe live in Norway. Calling Hardangervidda National Park their home, the number of reindeer in the winter months can reach numbers more than 7,000 in the national park alone. Number 5. Norway gave the world the cheese slicer. If you've ever used a cheese slicer, then you have a Norwegian to thank. Invented in 1925 by Thor Björklund, it became a compulsory element of all Scandinavian kitchens and still proves popular to this day. Norway loves its cheese, and even though cheese is often sold pre-sliced, many households still choose the traditional method of slicing themselves. Number 6. Norway rules the Winter Olympics. As a country that is known for being capped in snow during certain months of the year, it is no shock that Norway are often top of the medal podium at the Winter Olympics. The country is the world's most successful nation at the Winter Olympics, having won more medals than any other country at the Games. The country hosted the Winter Games back in 1952 in Oslo and in 1994 in Lillehammer. Number 7. Norwegians are massive bookworms. There is nothing Norwegians love more than a good book, and it is said that as a nation, they read more than any other country. More than 2,000 books are published in the country annually and is known for being the birthplace of great authors like Knut Hamsun and Henrik Ibsen. Number 8. Norway supplies London with a Christmas tree every year. As the type of Christmas tree would suggest, Norway supplies Trafalgar Square with a stunning Norwegian spruce tree every year. The generous donation to London is an age-old tradition dating back to 1947 and is Norway's way of thanking the British Isles for their support during World War II. Number 9. The country is home to the longest road tunnel. Did you know that Norway is home to the world's longest road tunnel? The Lærdal Tunnel is a whopping 15 kilometers in length, but is marveled for its mighty design and lighting. The tunnel features different light settings to keep the attention of drivers and help with mental strain. Number 10. Roald Dahl based The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory on a factory in Oslo. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a world-famous film that is marveled at across the globe. But did you know the factory is based on a factory in Norway? Roald Dahl based the books on Freia Chocolate Factory in Oslo. Now I'll tell you about Finnmark. The northernmost region of Norway is called Finnmark. See also Barents region. Its eastern part, bordering on Russia, does not present any significant elevations and is filled only with rounded hills and highlands. It is washed by the stormy waves of the Arctic Ocean. In the interior of the country, the valleys, irrigated by large rivers, especially the Tana, are covered in rich vegetation in summer, give the impression of more southern countries. But because of the long, severe winter, they are of little importance for agriculture. To the west of North Cape, the mountains assume an almost completely flat appearance, and at an altitude of 200 to 400 meters descend almost vertically to the sea. Here too there are significant rivers and above all the broad Alta, which, like the Tana River, has been famous for its salmon fishing for centuries. On its banks lies a fertile region bearing the same name, with beautiful forests and well-cultivated fields. This is the northernmost point where rye is grown. While the eastern part of Finnmark, with its large fjords, Tana, Laxe, Porsanger, and Varanger, or Varangian, is not at all protected from the sea by any islands. From North Cape begins a whole series of islands that protect the coast of Norway from the sea and represent a characteristic feature of Norway in terms of orography. The larger islands, such as Magerøy with Nordkapp, etc., lie closest. Further to the south, there are large and small islands interspersed, and here they already take on the distinctive character of the Scandinavian Sjergård, as this series of islands protecting the mainland is called here. The smallest of which is called Skjer, Skerries. Also nearby are the wide Alta Fjord and the Lyngen Fjord, which is almost 100 kilometers long, which is limited to the west by a mighty alpine snow and glacier chain, reaching 1,500 to 2,000 meters in height. Gotsapais, Goldsavare, Jekivare, Nialavare, etc. This chain represents the orographic limit of the Finnmark Highlands. And next, Norland. From Lyngen begins the so-called northern country Nordland, whose political boundaries almost coincide with the geographical ones. The ethnographic northern border in the Middle Ages was located a little south of Lyngen. This rugged terrain extends over a space of several degrees of latitude to the south, preserving the same character everywhere. The mountains here are mostly 1,000 to 1,800 meters high. Their highest peak, Sulitjelma, 1,880 meters, is located on the Swedish border with a large glacier. Closer to the coast lies the large Svardisen Glacier, 65 kilometers long, over 1,000 square kilometers in area, 1,097 meters high. Only the western slope of the mountain belongs to Norway. The rest, on the other side of the highest mountain range, is Swedish. From the inner corners of the sea bays, the border of the kingdom runs in places only 20 to 30 kilometers, and in one place even 15 kilometers. The most important fjords on this coast are Bals, below Lyngen, Malangen, Ofoten, Salten, Rana, and Vefsn. In front of the mainland are numerous and mostly large mountainous islands. North of the others lies the large group of Vesterålen Islands, of which the Lofoten group of islands extends far out to sea. Below Vefsn Fjord, the strip of firm land becomes wider. The mountains are lower, and the wide valley of Naumudal, through which the river Namsen flows into Namsen Fjord, represents the transition to the plains. Beyond it, they diverge into the wide, beautiful basin of Trondheimsfjord. Here lie fertile and well-cultivated areas. Trondelag, in ancient times the core of Norway, which, however, generally still retain the character of the valleys of Norway. The areas on the western side of this fjord, which cuts deep and wide into the mainland, are unattractive. At about 63 degrees near the mountainous mountain of Røros, which lies at an altitude of 600 meters, The highlands are broken, with significant mountains running in a southerly direction between the two states and PP. Dalälv and Klarälv skirt the watershed, following the direction of the seacoast to the southwest. And throughout this distance, as far as the remarkable descent at Lesjebergsvand, a lake lying at an altitude of 620 meters, the waters of which flow southeast into the Skagerrak and northwest into the Atlantic Ocean, are usually called Dovrefjell. Although this name of the region is applied by the inhabitants to that part only through which the main road from Oslo to Trondheim passes. This part of the mountains is lower and less wild on the east, but to the west the country becomes wilder, and the absolute marks increase and reach their greatest height in the form of the summit of Snøhetta, which was formerly long considered the highest mountain in Norway. According to the latest measurements, its height is 2,286 meters. The northern spur of Dovrefjell is quite large and is crossed by two large valleys, Orkdal and Geldal. To the west, the Driva, which runs from Snøhetta, forms the Zundal Valley, the surroundings of which represent the transition from Trøndelag to the western, coastal structure of the surface. The main mountain range here suddenly turns at a right angle to the south and is further called Langfjella. From here, the western spur is cut by a large spur, which juts out 209 kilometers into the mountain mass and forms one of the most magnificent and picturesque areas in Europe. To the east of here begins again a series of islands protecting the land, while the mountains for a long time continue to remain low and bare. These plateaus are called higher, and not one of them rises above 1,500 meters. Gradually, this series of flat elevations passes into the broken mountains of Telemark, forming a kind of tangled mountain knot, in which the mountain Gausta 13 rises as an isolated cone, reaching a height of 1,890 meters. Between the mountains stretch in different directions large valleys filled with rivers, streams, and lakes. Mona, one of these rivers, forms in its course the great waterfall Rjukan, 245 feet high. Beyond Telemark follow one after another 5 large main valleys, which direct all their waters into the Oslo Fjord, surrounded by low and fertile areas. The first, starting from the west, is Numedal, whose river Logan rises in a small lake on Hardangervidda. Then Hallingdal, also rising on this flat upland, and Valdres with the Begna River flowing out of Filefjell. Then comes Gudbrandsdalen and Österdalen, which forms the border with Sweden, both flowing out of Dovrefjell. All these valleys have many similarities with each other. From the watershed, they stretch out in the form of small furrows between the mountains that squeeze them on both sides, then gradually widen, and finally, as they approach the shore and the mountains disappear, they take on the character of a valley. These eastern valleys, the nature of which is entirely different from the western, are collectively called Eastern Mountainous, or lying to the east of the mountains, Norway, Østafjelske Norge, and together with the western areas up to Lindesnes and formerly to the eastern border of Jæren, they form the so-called Sondafjelske Norge, Southern Mountainous, or lying to the south of the mountains, Norway. The remaining parts, originally from Jæren, were called Nordafjelske Norge in ancient times, the southern parts of which, starting from the city, are now called Vestafjelske Norge. This division of the country is based on the natural conditions of the landscape. Such a division of the country into parts by extremely high and inaccessible mountain masses causes a great variety in the character and customs of the population. In the southern mountainous Norway, the rivers, of which the largest is the Glomma in Østerdalen, are of considerable length and often form large lakes, which, however, should be considered only as widenings of the riverbed. Such, for example, is the largest of all the lakes in eastern and all of Norway, Mjøsa, which receives the waters of the river Lågen flowing out of Gudbrandsdalen, and in turn gives them to Glomma through Vorma. With a length of 117 kilometers, it occupies an area of only 364 square kilometers. Its banks are partly low and fertile, especially the southeastern bank, on which the plain of Hedmarken spreads out widely. These rivers form numerous waterfalls, for example, on the Glomma River. The Sarpfossen waterfall, 20 meters high. In Telemark and in the western regions, waterfalls of 150 to 190 meters are not uncommon. Vettisfossen in Sogn, Vøringsfossen and Ringedalsfossen in Hardanger.